Hello everyone, this is Aisha and welcome to our 47th Kotlin tutorial. And in this tutorial, I will be talking about classes and objects and how you can create objects for each class. So now here in the last tutorial, we have created a class and the name of this class is waiter, and inside this waiter class we have a private data member and whose name is hire waiter. So this private data member or the property is not accessible outside the class. Now this hire waiter property is a boolean property which is equals to true here. So now I'm going to create a function of this waiter class fun hire. Fun is the keyword to declare a function, then hire is the name of the function, and then empty parameters, and then the body of the function. So now inside the body of the function, I'm going to access this data member. So this data member is accessible inside the class but not outside the class. So inside this function, we can access this data member. So now equals true. It means that we have hired or waiter. Now again, I'm going to create another function fire which will fire or waiter. So now hire waiter equals false. So now we have a data member here which is equals to true, or you can also here one thing should be noted. If I write boolean and I do not initialize it, then I will have an error. This is because when you create a data member or a property in a class, you must have to initialize that property. And if the class is an abstract class, then you have an option to not to initialize this property. But when you are working with simple classes, then you must have to initialize your data members. And here the error says property must be initialized or be abstract. So this property must be abstract or must be initialized. So now here I have to initialize this property, so I'm going to write true. And now everything is fine because this property or the data member is initialized. Now I have two functions, hire waiter and fire waiter. So inside this hire function, we have accessed the data member. Inside the fire member, we have accessed the data member. And then inside the hire, we have true. Inside fire, we have false. So now I'm going to create another function which will be display waiter. Now this function will contain an argument waiter, the name of the waiter, and it will be of string data type and it returns nothing. So now the body of the function. So inside the body of the function, I'm going to create a condition if or hire waiter variable or hire waiter data member or property equals true, then display what you have to display, the name of the waiter, here the name which will be passed when this function is called. So we will use waiter. So this waiter is declared in the function declaration. Then waiter, this one waiter is hired. When this hire waiter equals true, we have this message printed on the output screen. Else if this hire waiter equals false, then what you have to do is print line this waiter is fired. So now this is the definition of our class. Okay, so what we did, we have a class waiter which is declared using the keyword class. Then the body of the class. Inside the body of the class, we have a private data member or the property. Its name is hire waiter, which is a boolean variable, boolean type property, and it must be initialized. Then we have three member functions. So when you do not write this private keyword, then these data members or the member functions will be public. So now you can access these functions outside the class. Now we have created a function using the keyword fun and then hire, and inside this hire function I have accessed my property and changed the value. Similarly in the fire function, I have accessed this property and changed the value, and then in the display function I have a check if condition. If this hire waiter equals true, after running these functions the value of this hire waiter will be evaluated. So if it is true, then this message is printed, so we can say that waiter is hired. And if this value is false, then this message will be printed. Now how you can call these functions of class? By creating an object of the class. And now I'm going to tell you guys how you can create objects of the class. So first of all, you have to use the keyword var or vol, whatever you want, and then the name of the object. For example, Roger is the name of my object, equals Roger equals the name of our class waiter, and waiter is with small w and then empty parameters. So now we have created this object of the waiter class. Now I can use this object of the waiter class to call these functions. Then I'm going to create another variable, another object of the waiter class, which is James equals the waiter class and empty parameters. Now I'm going to use these objects to call the functions. To call the hire functions, then Roger will be hired. To call the fire function, then hire waiter will be false. So now Roger dot, first of all, the hire function. Roger is hired. Then I will use this Roger object to display our waiter. So now here I'm going to pass Roger, the name of the waiter. So now if you run this program, you will see Roger is hired. So what we did, we have created an object of the waiter class, and we have used this object Roger to call the hire function. When we call the hire function of class waiter, then the hire waiter becomes equals to true. Then we have used this object, this Roger object, to call the display waiter function, and we have passed a string which is the name of the waiter. So the name of the waiter is Roger. So when this function is called, the control is transferred here. So inside this function we have conditions if and else. So now when we call the hire function, hire waiter becomes equals to true, and then we call the display waiter function using the same object. Then we have condition if hire waiter equals true, Roger is hired. If hire waiter equals false, then Roger is fired. Now if I use the second object, which is James dot fire, and then using the same object to call the display waiter function and passing a string which is the name of the waiter, for example James here. Now James will call the fire function, and inside the fire function we have hire waiter equals false. So now the value of this hire waiter will be changed, and then we have used this object, the same object, to call the display waiter function and passed a string. So when this display waiter function is called, the value of James equals false here. So now hire waiter equals false, so this condition is not true, this else part will be executed, and we have James is fired. Now you will see, run, and you can see Roger is hired and James is fired. So this is how you can use classes and objects to call the functions of classes, and how you can create an object by using the keyword var or vol, whatever you want, and then the name of the object, and then the assignment operator, and then we have the name of our class with empty parameters. So thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.